Welcome back to the 98% Life After Prison and episode 3 of our 6th season. Our podcast is dedicated to the vast majority of incarcerated men and women in North Carolina who will eventually be released back into our communities, often with little more than the clothes on their backs and a $45 gate check. I'm April Barber Scales.
And I'm Judy Van Wyk. Today, we're going to tackle an issue that affects just about anybody who's been to prison. It's called Post Incarceration Syndrome, or PICS, P-I-C-S for short. In April, you first introduced us to this condition last year in your series, On a Mission with a Purpose. Can you kind of describe for us your understanding of what post-incarceration syndrome is?
Post-incarceration syndrome is a mental health condition similar to PTSD, but it specifically targets those or affects those who have been incarcerated.
And you have dealt with post-incarceration syndrome yourself, right?
Yeah, I've caught myself doing some weird things that are only specifically related to those that have been in prison, like sleeping with my head covered up and eating dinner at 4:30, which is really unheard of out here.
Those habits you learned in prison.
Indeed.
And even though the American Psychiatric Association hasn't formally recognized post-incarceration syndrome in its diagnostic manual, the DSM, researchers, therapists, and of course formerly incarcerated people and their loved ones all recognize the symptoms and describe it as an affliction akin to PTSD. And just as trauma impacts people in different ways, so does post-incarceration syndrome. So today, we're going to hear from 3 different people to learn how each of them have been haunted by the trauma of incarceration. We'll also discover what they've learned about how to move beyond the anxiety and social isolation of PICS.
Cliff Austin did 3 tours in prison and was determined to never, ever go back. It unsettled him even to drive by a prison. So when he got a job in Hillsborough with the North Carolina Department of Corrections, he was forced to confront his deepest fears.
Tell me about the day you got released. Was there anyone there waiting for you at the prison gate?
I had one of my cousins to come pick me up from the gate. And then from there, I kind of floated around with my cousins for the most part of the day. And then I went home to where my father lives, and I stayed with him. So, yeah.
Was it exciting? Was it scary? What was it like?
I mean, a little bit of both. I was anxious, more anxious than anything, because I had a plan of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to get started right away. And, but it was a little scary because I didn't know if everything would work out according to plan. So it was a little bit of everything. Everything was. I was happy of being released. I was getting rid of that place. So felt everything that day.
How long did it take you to sort of acclimate, get on your feet, get a job?
Things kind of went real quick with me. For me. I had a place. My grandmother passed some years back, and so my father had my grandmother's house. I kind of stayed with him for maybe a couple of weeks, and then he moved me into my grandmother's house, and so I stayed there for a couple of months until I, kind of wanted my own place. So. I was working. I kind of got a job pretty quick. I knew some people, and I got that job, and I just worked that job until I started to go to school for my CDLs. And then from there, I just jumped into, driving trucks and stuff. So things kind of went, like I said, I had a plan So it was just me working my plan, you know, so things was rolling pretty quick for me. So
We're here to talk about PICS, Post Incarceration Syndrome. And there is, undoubtedly trauma with prison. How did that trauma that you went through inside manifest itself after you were released?
I would say for me, and it's kind of always been like that. Like I said, I've been locked up 3 times. And for me, it's always been the fear of going back. It's just like anytime I drove by a prison or a jail or something, it was just like I always put myself back in there, mentally, not physically, but mentally. It's like I was just there, and the feeling of being there comes back. You relive it, you kind of relive it. It's like, it's something that you really have to start to bring yourself out of, fight to not, or fight to say, okay, look, that was the past, you're here now, live your life from here, so yeah, I would say that.
So you work for DOT and your job is literally right beside the prison.
I didn't even realize that it was a prison back then. So when just realizing and seeing that, oh man, it's a prison right there. It was just kind of almost, I would say almost to the point like I didn't want the job. I didn't want the job because I didn't want to be as close to a prison that we are. We maybe 100 feet away from it. So yeah.
So what are the kind of things that would trigger those feelings?
Like I said, just riding by, seeing a prison. Just the hearing of the intercoms now is not so bad because I've been out a couple of years, but it gets annoying. And it's like I said, it takes me back to when I was there and either, moving around the campus or either sitting on my bunk for count time. It brings you back. It brings all those memories back.
Have you had dreams about being inside?
Yeah, I've actually had a dream. I had this dream twice back in 2000. I would say 2020 and 20 or 21. In between there, I had that dream twice of going back to prison. Yeah. And it was so real. So yeah, and I felt like it was kind of like God telling me to, get from around the people that I was around, and so I did, and I haven't had that dream since. So yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah. That dream just kind of it shook me to my core because that was the last place that I ever wanted to be again. I have a 19-year-old son now. He's in college, and me going to prison kind of I wouldn't say destroyed our relationship, but it put a dent in it. I mean, we are fine now, but not like we were before me going to prison. And so I knew that was kind of one of my turning points. I knew I never wanted to not be in my son's life, so that dream was just like kind of like the real wake up call for me to say, okay, even sometimes some people you may have to change as well as your environment, so.
When did you first hear about Post Incarceration Syndrome, the term PICS?
I've heard about it when I started doing peer support. And that was maybe 2 years ago. So yeah, I heard about that. That was my first time hearing it. And that was actually from my cousin Scott. So he the one that brought that term up. So yeah.
Did being able to put a label on it, did it help you kind of get over those feelings?
I wouldn't say get over it, but being more aware of what it is or what it was, so it and also helping me with knowing what it is, how to deal with it, that helps you to get rid of it. So yeah, just knowing what it is, even with my therapy, just finding out a lot of the things that you may do, it may stem from other things. So learning why are you doing this or why are you feeling this way, it makes things better for you, and it makes you feel like, okay, well, I'm not out of my mind.
Well, let's just talk about your life today. So you're working for DOT and you've gotten married. So tell us about getting married and what your hopes are for the future too.
Yeah, so I got married May 5th, 2025. And so we've been married a year. We just celebrated our first year anniversary. And we are looking forward to being one of those couples that, can say, hey, we've been married 25 years or 30, 40 years. That's my hopes. That's what I'm looking for. And it's been a big learning experience. It's been a lot of me putting the mirror up to myself and just being uncomfortable. So with uncomfortability, it's been a lot of growing. My wife, she puts me in a lot of positions to where I have to get out of my comfort zone, and it forces me to grow. Whereas I don't think, or before her, I would not. I would say deflect. I would deflect, and just probably stay in my little corner, be comfortable, never coming outside of that comfort zone. And so now, like I said, it's been a learning experience. I'm learning and really realizing that, is more to being a man than just providing and having the anatomy of a man. Is more to that. So yeah, it's been a big learning experience.
What would you say to someone else who's coming out of prison about how to deal with the challenges and the trauma that they carry with them?
I would tell any of the guys or any of the women coming out of prison, for me, the mindset change started from the time those handcuffs was getting put on me. It was shifting then. But for me, it starts within the prison, the change. You have to start making a plan for yourself. Even if the plan doesn't work, you have you have a roadmap that you can work from. The prison system can be a school of hard knocks, or it can be a university for you to come out and be the best person, best version of yourself. So it's all on you.
I enjoyed talking to Cliff and hearing his words of wisdom, especially when he described his marriage. What his story didn't include was the fact that he's been studying to become an IT support specialist. And so I texted him to find out whether or not he'd graduated yet. He texted back to say that after talking to his therapist, he decided to follow his passion for real estate investing. In the next month or so, I hopefully will be looking forward to purchasing my first investment property. Go, Cliff. We appreciate your passion and wish you the best.
Next, we're going to meet a special friend of mine, Sheena Rogers. We both were incarcerated as minors and spent most of our youth behind bars. Ever since Sheena's discovered that there's a term for all the post-incarceration trauma she's experienced, she's been determined to talk about it and help other women feel less isolated and alone as they adapt to living outside the fence. Here's her story.
You were married at a very young age. Can you talk about that and talk about your first marriage?
Yes. Well, I was 14 when I met him, and within 2 months, I got married to a man almost 21 years old. And during that time of my life, mad at mom and convinced her to sign off for my marriage. So back then, you had to have a parent's signature. So I basically, convinced my mom that I need to get married, thinking that I could go somewhere else and do what I wanted. And he was the local drug dealer. I was a drug addict. So to me, it was the perfect fit for, a 14-year-old girl. And so got married. And within the first month was the first hit. Within the second month was the first sexual assault. I spent 2 years until I was 17, and then 55 days after my 17th birthday, I was arrested for accessory to his murder.
I think that that's important because domestic violence is, first of all, so prevalent. And second of all, because it really motivates a lot of your advocacy work now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I helped ban child marriage last year in Missouri and continue to fight, around the United States with Unchained at Last to fight child marriage. Who knew that had to be an argument, but you actually have to argue with legislators why we should ban child marriage.
So you were in for 25 years.
And you have to remember, I had life without parole, which I was sentenced to death by incarceration. So I want to kind of mention that, when I was married, I tried to go to an abuse shelter for women, and I wasn't old enough because I was 18. I couldn't get a lawyer to get divorced because I wasn't 18. It took my mother having to help me to get a restraining order. But at 17, I could face the death penalty in Missouri. I couldn't get the help I needed, but they could kill me for it. So at 17, I'm in adult county jail. I was sexually assaulted by a guard. And so it just seemed like when I got to prison, for the first time, I finally felt free. I felt free from, that's before I knew what prison was. But when I first got to prison, I felt like I was finally free for the first time in my life.
Yeah, because you were such a victim of abuse.
Yes.
I hear that. Tell me what it was like when you got out.
Wow. When I was in prison, I thought I was never going home. And then all of a sudden, 2012, they said any juvenile sentenced to life without parole could not be sentenced to life without parole, Miller versus Alabama. And all of a sudden, I was faced with going home. And so when I got out, it was a whirlwind, to say the least, because I went from knowing who I was in prison, structured environment, knowing what to expect every day. But I lived in fight or flight. Anybody incarcerated lives in fight or flight every day, all day. And so coming home was probably harder than it was to ever go in prison.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Post Incarceration Syndrome is what it's labeled as now. But when I first got out, nobody was talking about that. So when I got out, like I said, I was established in prison. Everybody knew me. I worked with staff. I worked, doing a bunch of different programs. And when I came out, I was this terrible convict. I'd been to prison. I couldn't get a job. Every obstacle just seemed to just smack me in the face. And I thought, this is terrible out here. There was a lot of choices. In prison, you have very little choices, and I got overwhelmed. So just learning every day coming home, I felt so lost, and I didn't want to go back to prison. I knew that's not an option. So I had considered ending my life because the sadness, feeling alone. I couldn't sleep on a bed the first night. For the first few nights, I had to sleep on the floor because it was too soft. Leaving lights on, leaving water running, just simple things that people don't think about every day. Coming out of the bathroom with toilet paper under my arm. My mom used to say, "Why are you carrying the toilet paper around?" Or "Why do you always keep shoes on?" And all these things were very overwhelming to me because it made me feel like something was wrong with me.
You didn't know how to behave.
No, I didn't know how to behave. I knew that coming home was going to be maybe a struggle, but the things that they taught me in there for my preparation to come home, hey, this is how you do an interview. This is these little life skill things they give you. But in reentry in prison, they're not teaching you how to emotionally released from prison. Like, I was there for 25 years. So the women there became my sisters, my mother, my cousins, family orientated, especially among women. And when I came home, all 25 years, here's this whole family that never visited me. I didn't talk to on the phone really. I didn't know them. And so I felt in a room full of people, I always felt alone. I never knew really how to act. I just felt like that lone person in the room that I didn't have things in common to talk to them about. I didn't have the memories that they would share with each other. All my memories were made with my friends inside.
Did you have anyone to talk to?
Um, I was scared to talk to anybody because people would say to me all the time, "Oh my gosh, you should be so grateful. You had life without and now you're free." So it almost made me feel guilty to talk about any of the issues I was having because who was I to have problems with being free? It made me feel like something was wrong with me. And nobody was talking about PICS 8 years ago because we were all just starting to come home. A bunch of juveniles, people have served 20, 30 years, from the 70s and 80s are just now starting to come home. So this became a real issue at this point. I met this guy who's now my husband, and he did 2 tours in Iraq. So he had combat, and he said, "You have PTSD. It's almost like when we come home from war, you're going through the same thing." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, so people that come from war, they don't know how to live a civilian life after they lived in such a violent life." And so I started really researching that, and I started talking to him, and I started realizing that, we had a lot in common, not too much different from somebody coming from war, from prison.
You really experienced some trauma in prison also that really did haunt you and follow you home. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember I was sexually assaulted in the county jail by an officer. So that trauma carried into prison. Also, when in our prison, male officers, they really get in your face. They yell at you. They're screaming. So here's this big, powerful men, like really almost overpowering you and can set you into that, especially coming from abuse. But we also had an officer who carried a gun into our prison, shot his girlfriend, who was another officer, and then shot himself while we were all, very close proximity. And that trauma of watching a murder suicide was I still see it to this day. And so uh fight or flight every day, just trying to figure out whether I was getting a fight that day. There was whether the officer was going to lock me in the hole for whatever reason today. Like there was just all these traumas that happen, watching people get in fights and get really, really injured. And even though that's part of what happens in prison, it does leave you with a lot of trauma.
You talk about your husband. What part did he play in your healing?
Every part, actually. He allowed me to be emotional. He allowed me to have a safe space to be angry. He allowed me a safe space to talk about what I was going through. And then he would encourage me, okay, so he would always say to me, you learned how to live in there. So now you have to relive out here. So we just have to learn. So if things got really frustrating, he'd say, okay, let's step back and think about, how would you have done this if you was in prison? Like, how would you have survived this in prison? So he always was taking me back to the places that the things that worked for me in prison, why couldn't they work for me out here? Like the breathing techniques, or have I meditated? Do I journal? Do I need to talk to a counselor? Encouraged me to talk to a counselor. But yeah, he just listened. Mainly he listened and he understood, and he never judged what I was going through. Because I think a lot of people, when they come home, their loved ones take it personal. Because like my mom was taking personal what was going on with me. My family was taking personal what was going on with me. And my husband, he wasn't taking it personal. He was taking, I was going through some things.
So tell me about your life today.
Oh, today I work for Human Rights Watch on the National Leadership Council to end life without parole. I have my own organization, Show Me Justice for All. We fight disparity in sentencing among Black, Brown, Indigenous, but we also fight for domestic violence and sexual assault survivors who've been incarcerated behind their abuse, like me. It was a domestic situation. I also have From the Trenches ministry. I'm an ordained pastor. I opened a house for women. We house 10 women. We have 7 right now. And we help women coming out of abuse, homelessness, or, are in current recovery or coming from incarceration. And I work for Missouri Justice Coalition as a senior organizer. And I spend a lot of my time helping try to do criminal justice reform. I work with Unchained at Last, helping ban child marriage. And so I just have surrounded my life. I'm a criminal paralegal. I help people in prison sometimes, navigate the justice system. Or before they go to prison now, I've been working with people to kind of say, hey, get your discovery, ask your lawyer these questions, and just trying to help people navigate before they get that long sentence. Let me figure out how to fight for this now. And I have a reentry program, Prep for Release. So.
Wow. Do you sleep?
No, I don't feel like I sleep.
Yeah, I mean, you've really taken on a lot.
I have. I'm trying to clear out my schedule a little bit. I think that came with my picks. Coming home, I felt such self-guilt that here was these other women and men in prison that deserve to come home too, and they're still incarcerated and still fighting for their freedom. And I feel like every moment I'm not fighting for somebody, that it's a day longer they're staying in prison. And I think that comes with that survivor's guilt.
What would you like to tell other people who are coming out of prison? How do they deal with their emotions and navigate that?
Well, one, remember that when you first come home, it's the honeymoon stage. Everything is exciting. It's great. It's wonderful. And that it's okay to take it slow. Most of us come out, especially if we've spent long-term in prison, trying to hit the ground running. My advice is to take a week or even 2 to just decompress, navigate your surroundings, and anybody who loves you will allow you to do that. Another thing is finding that one person that you can tell what's going on in your mind, that you feel like is a safe space. And if you don't have that safe space, to try to find somebody in counseling to be that safe space for you. I also tell people when they first come home, the biggest part of it is to remember there's nothing wrong with you. You just like when we went into prison, we had to learn to navigate that world. When you come home, you're having to learn to navigate this world, and that's okay. Take time to learn who you are out here.
I love talking to her. She's great.
Yeah. Sheena, as always, gives the best advice because she's someone that is willing to be vulnerable enough and share her story. And that in and alone is something that can help someone else who is not yet willing to share their experience.
Sheena reminds me of you, April.
Yep. I agree. I love Sheena.
Both of you women are just, you can't stop you. As we're learning so far from these interviews, the ability to form and maintain healthy relationships can be especially difficult for justice-involved people who have had to survive prison by always keeping their guard up. Next, we're going to meet Edward Scott, known to his many friends as Scotzo. Scotzo spent nearly 30 years inside before he was released in June of 2020. Since then, he's successfully rebuilt his life and gotten married. But he still struggles with post-incarceration syndrome. And he's learned that life on the outside doesn't always make it easy to trust other people. Here's his story. Do you remember that day that you got out, what that was like, what you were feeling?
I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. But to have the support that I had, right across the street from the prison is like a Pizza Hut and other like little stores. Some of my friends that picked me up that day kind of surprised me with, some of the volunteers that I had met when I was at OCC. They was at, across the street waiting for me. And when I pulled into the parking lot, everybody was cheering, hey, 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 hey. And this made me feel so good, to realize that, that I was loved the way I was loved. And I had so much support too. So, I really, really enjoyed it. But I still couldn't believe it. After 29 years and 8 months, I couldn't believe that I was out.
When did you first notice that you were having trouble leaving prison behind, that prison was sort of haunting you?
I can remember going into a store, right, and trying to use my credit card, right? And knowing that I've been gone so long and never used a credit card before. So I saw how prison haunted me just by going into that store and trying to, pay for my clothes and didn't know how to pay for it. And not only that, going to the DMV, when I went to the DMV and the way that people talked to me at the DMV made me feel like I was still in prison. And to see them in that uniform made me feel like I still was in prison. So that was kind of rough for me. And when I went back to where I lived at, the transition house, I tried to process that. It was like, dang, man, you're not in prison no more. Because they got them clothes on, that don't mean that you're still incarcerated. So prison was always haunting me in different places. Like you might think the colors you wear. I saw people wearing different colors. I'm used to wearing grays or greens, and to come out here and got all these different colors, I still bought gray pants. I bought a lot of gray pants. And someone was telling me, a friend of mine was telling me, man, you got to start getting different colors. So prison was always haunting me because I was still with clothes, technology, socially, with interacting with people. So yeah.
Tell me about interacting with people. How do you think prison affected your relationships?
And you know what? A lot of guys that's and females that's gonna come out gonna have those issues when it comes to socializing. I can remember trying to build a rapport with my daughter. I'm gonna start with her first. And, trying to build that rapport and, trying to be a father figure to her, to a young adult who's now, 18, 19 years old. When I left the street, she was, 6. And trying to be that father figure to someone that don't even know you was like insane because I felt like I had got myself together. I know how to be a father. I knew how to be a man. And I wanted to be that father to her. Instead of me letting her process it, what I did was pushing it. I want to be your dad, this and that, and this. I'm telling her she should do this. I'm telling her she should do that. But she's like, how are you going to tell me what I should be doing? And I don't even know who you are. you're not getting us time to really get to know each other. And I had to step back. It was hurtful. Socially, it was hurtful because that's my daughter, and I want her to recognize that I'm your father. So that was kind of hard for me to step back, and let her, be, let her process it. I had to let her process it. And it was hard for me at first because that's my daughter, and I wanted to be there for her.
In what other ways did the trauma kind of manifest itself, do you think? I mean, what in small ways? Like April says that she still sleeps with the covers over her head because the lights were always on in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to get myself out of that too. It's funny you said that because I can remember when I was in prison, I used to get up like 4:30 in the morning before everybody else get up because, when you get up at the same time everybody else get up, it's crowded. Everybody bumping into each other. Everybody trying to use their bathroom at the same time. Everybody trying to brush their teeth at the same time. Everybody trying to use the bathroom. So what I used to do is I used to try to get up 4:30 in the morning when everybody's still asleep, get me a cup of coffee, read me something spiritual, read me something that's motivational, brush my teeth, wash my face, and sit there and just watch TV until they call child call. I found myself doing that same thing out here, getting up in the morning, not realizing that you're not in prison no more. Getting up in the morning, trying to get up before my wife get up, make sure I'm not in her way, what I'm saying, and stuff like that, and going to the bathroom, and turning the water on while I'm using the bathroom. Because sometimes in prison, you don't want nobody hearing you using the bathroom. So you'll turn the water on so nobody can hear you using it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get, too in depth with what I'm doing in the bathroom. But using the bathroom, going to the shower with your flip-flops on. You know what I'm saying? I had to get out of that. I found myself with my towel on my arm, my washcloth on my shoulder, and I'm walking to the bathroom. I don't have to do that no more. I'm not in prison. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that kind of like brought me back to that prison setting. And I realized that if we don't get out of that coming out here, it's not going to work within relationships. Because a lot of us bring that same type of prison mentality out into the world, and it's not going to work because we're allowing that same prison thinking to get in the way of us building a relationship with our daughter, building a relationship with our sons, building a relationship with family members, building a relationship with your wife or your girlfriend or whoever it may be, building a relationship with other people. Because sometimes we might think that what we're saying is right and not, being open enough or open-minded enough to hear the other person out because we stuck in our prison mentality, our prison ways, and we're not actually hearing the other person out. And I think that a lot of us do that because we're so institutionalized that we allow those thinking to come back out here and then we think it's going to work. That's why I always try to stress to people that if you don't figure out how to live out here, you're not going to figure out how to keep the license, how to keep the ID, how to keep the house. Because you don't know how to live out here, you don't know how to deal on life terms. And when you don't know how to deal on life terms, you're not going to be able to keep all that other stuff.
One of the big things that you can't do in prison that it becomes difficult for a lot of people is the ability to trust.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people that have been in prison been institutionalized so long that the trust factor is out the door because of what they've been through since they've been in prison. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if we don't turn that around and begin to learn how to trust again, that is going to affect us with any of our relationships that we do. Any door that you try to walk through, you're not going to be able to walk through it because you don't trust the people that's inside that room. And the person in that room might be the one that help you out.
How did you heal yourself? How did you deal with all those challenges and that trauma?
First and foremost, I'm not trying to make it a religious thing, but first and foremost, I had to get a relationship with God first. And I'm not saying it was easy getting a relationship with God. It wasn't easy for me to heal, you know what I mean, because I've been through a whole lot. But as I began to trust in God, it allowed me to open my mind and to be able to know how to trust other people, even though they might say something or do something, I have to give it that chance. I have, because if you don't, you might be missing something. And I think by me, first being that spiritual person and learning how to deal with myself mentally and spiritually and psychologically, it gave me a better opportunity of learning how to deal with others and also other situations too. Because, me not knowing how to deal with these situations, I feel like if I'd have brought that out here, it would have really harmed me in a way that I couldn't, move forward in the things that I'm trying to do of helping other people. And I'm telling you something that a lot of people don't realize, that post incarceration syndrome is real. And a lot of people that's coming out of prison don't really know what they're going through. But I can see it because it shows up in your, the way you navigate life, right? It shows up in how you react to things. You know what I'm saying? It shows up in your trust factor. It shows up in all that. And I get it. I understand. And I've been hurt 1,000 times since I've been out here. But that's not going to stop me from trusting people. And I think a lot of people allow things like that to stop them from trusting, because it's all good people out here. You know what I mean? But when you're in prison and you in that type of environment, you don't have trust for nobody because everybody got some type of thing going on, getting over. You know what I'm saying? And that get over thing is in everybody. So why not try to trust? So that's important for me. I can't speak for nobody else, but for me, I have to trust. I have to continue to trust. If I don't, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, who's going to open doors for me if I don't trust nobody? Then I'll be by myself all the time.
How can you grow?
How could you grow? Exactly. So it's very important. I think for me, I learned that in my travel for 29 years that I knew that I didn't want to come out here the same way that I came into prison. And I knew that I had to change the way I think. That was the most important thing to me. It was a guy that I was locked up with before. And I'm not trying to deviate. But okay, it was a guy that I was locked up with before. And he came back like once or twice. And the second time he came back, I think I was in honor grade. And I said, what happened, man? He said, man, life showed up. And I didn't understand that at first when he said life showed up. Until 2025, I went through a dark place, a real dark place in my time of my life. I just didn't share with nobody. I was going through a lot. And it been many times that I sat in my car just crying, you know what I mean? Physically tears because I didn't know which way to go. But now it's back to the trust. I had to actually trust someone to talk to them, to let them know what I was going through. Because if I didn't, I don't know what I would have done. So now, I don't think I shared it with you before, but now I'm trying my best to find a safe space for people that's coming out to be able to share their story and be vulnerable enough to share their story and be safe enough and feel safe enough to be able to say, okay, I can give you what I'm going through, right? And I'm not to worry about, it getting out to nobody else because I'm giving it to you, I trust you, and I believe that you're going to help me go through what I'm going through. That's what I want to be to the people that's coming out of prison. That's why I say I understand when people go through the post incarceration syndrome. I understand how they feel. They might don't know, but I'm trying to bring awareness to this topic because it's very, very, very important.
April, you and Scotzo are working together to provide reentry support to people who are coming out of prison, right? So can you tell us about that?
Scotzo and I work with Wounded Healers, which was an organization that was birthed inside of Orange Correctional with Scotzo and a longtime volunteer. And they brought the concept out here. And it is reentry peer support, which is specifically provided for those reentering, helping them navigate not only reentering, but how to live in society.
Giving them that support because it's so overwhelming.
Yep, can be.
Very important. That's our show for today. But before we go, I want to give a shout out to Moby Gratis, an online music resource created by a world-renowned musician that offers free music to nonprofit creators like us. The music under Scotzo's interview is provided by Moby Gratis, and I'm excited to have discovered this amazing resource.
Join us for our next show when we interview George Pettigrew, who oversees the Division of Rehabilitation and Reentry for North Carolina's Department of Adult Corrections. He's going to talk about Reentry 2030, an ambitious whole-of-government initiative aimed at reducing recidivism and breaking the cycles of incarceration. Until then, if you want to get in touch or just listen to old episodes, you can do so through our website, www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com. That's www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com.
We'll see you next time, and in the meantime, take care and stay cool.